car fans, welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Revell, and this week I wanted to show you a custom build of mine, a 70 Boss 302 here, and it was done in a color shifting paint, as you can see if you catch the greens as the lights hit it. It's kind of hard to film a color like this. As you see the paint shifting and changing colors, and it has some purple to it too, but it's under all these lights, so it's kind of hard to, you can see the green. You see some of the purple there, so if I get the angle just right. But this was a fun build for me, and I enjoyed every minute of it. You know, I love these Revell Monogram Mustangs. Been building so many of them, and it's another one of my many here. So I figured this week I would show you this one. Part of the reason I built this one and I wanted to do this one was the engine that comes in this kit. If you've ever looked at the contents of the Boss 302, it's got some custom parts to it. It's got a hood scoop and some interesting parts in there. But for me, I couldn't help but notice the intake and the carburetor. If you guys know what a crossboss is, another shot of the paint there. I just love the way that shines. But the crossboss engine, the intake system, comes in this kit. And I don't know how many of you guys actually know this. It's really not a custom part. That is a factory part. It's a factory race part. Technically wasn't available. I guess you could buy them over the counter, but they're very, very rare. And they came out with this intake carb setup in 1970 for the SCCA racing, as the multiple carburation wasn't allowed. And I guess some of the rules was, you know, a 4-barrel was allowed, so Ford came up with the idea, well, what if we make a inline 4-barrel carburetor? And it was quite an interesting concept, and I guess it developed pretty good, and they ran fairly well. I always thought it was funny. Why did they call it the Crossboss when it's inline? And it's actually not really pertaining to the carburetor. It's pertaining to the intake design, because one barrel feeds one runner on each side, and it's actually kind of like a tunnel ram, in the sense you see drag racers with the 4-barrel carburetors and the long straight intake runners. Well, this was the same kind of thing, except for they needed to fit under the stock hood. So they came up with this arrangement. And I thought this was going to work out really well, and I guess it did. And so they got it going, got it developed, and they started racing them. Now there's 3 different versions of this carburetor from what I understand reading. The very first version was 875 CFM, and that's what the race cars had gotten, and they were developing them with those. Then they came out with a street version that was 850 CFM. That's part number that ends in A. And then there's a third version, which is the second street version, second design, which had a different Venturi, and it actually was like 1400 CFM. And it's quite a lot of CFM. But when you think about, you know, the Mopars and their 6-packs, the center carburetor was like 500 CFM, and the outer carburetors were 350. So that was a 1200 CFM in the 6-barrel setup on that. Well, this is 4 barrels, but I guess they weren't very streetable as far as the intake setups go, but they were available to the public. You could buy them. There's a guy that actually rebuilds them, and you know, it's hard to say how many were actually made. Nobody really knows, but some say they estimate 200 or so, or maybe more. But one intake and carb setup was on eBay recently and sold for $7,500 for the intake and carb. But it's just, to me, it's just pretty cool that it's actually a race part and a factory part, and it was being developed. Now, I've read other guys that had them and used them on the streets and what they were doing, and I guess most of them didn't run very well, but there is a gentleman that has got many years experience tuning and setting up this setup, and he knows how to tweak them and fix some of the modifications and things that have happened to him over the years. So there's a gentleman that pretty much specializes in this carburetor, and most of the parts, it's an auto-light carburetor, and what I've read is most of the internal parts of this carburetor are the same as other Autolite carbs, so a lot of the parts are actually easy to get other than the main part of the body and some of the pieces. But a lot of the actual components are interchangeable. But that was one of the things when I decided I was going to build this custom. I'm like, I've got to do this intake setup. Now, Monogram gives you the intake and the carburetor and then the hoses. Those are all factory parts, but it also comes with this very big oval air cleaner that stands up and a scoop that goes on top of this hood. So you cut out the hole in the hood and you put on the scoop. Those are, you know, custom parts. The Ford didn't have that setup. I mean, it had to fit under this hood. So I thought it was really cool. I'm like, all right, if I'm going to build, you know, since I had another extra 70 Mustang and I was going to build this custom, I decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to use this motor. So that's the main draw for me was this motor and whatnot, even though it's really a race motor, not really a street one. But it's just a really cool induction system. And I understand it works really good on stroker combos. So some of the guys that are, you know, that have these intakes actually put them on top of stroker engines with even more bore and stroke and high winding, and they supposedly run really well versus being on more of a stock Boss 302 short block and heads. But this one, my original focus was I just needed an extra body to try this House of Color paint. And this is something I picked up at Walmart many years ago when Walmart was carrying the House of Color paint. So I'm like, I just need a subject to put it on. And since I had so many of these, I'm like, I'm going to put it on this one and see how she comes out. And I really enjoyed doing it. And I liked what it did. Plus I had the Boss 302 stripes in white, which go really well with this, which on the real cars, they did not come with white stripes. So these stripes on are from the 70 kit, and of course the ones on the side, those are actually 69 Boss 302 stripes, which I just prefer those. So I put those on it. And these are actually, who did those? I actually built this like 10 years ago or more. I'm not really sure on the timeline. The last detail, he did the decals. I bought a set of white from him, and I also bought black ones. And at the time, I didn't realize that all the factory 69s were black only. They didn't offer white stripes. But the race car had it. You can get, you know, one of the race cars actually had white stripes, but the street cars did not. So I painted the car, and the paint came out awesome. And I removed the marker lights. You can see I filled in the marker lights, shaved the door handles, smoothed it out, just going for a mild custom here. And then I had some fun with the emblems. You see I put the emblem here on both sides. And then I put the 70 Mustang script that goes right here. The ones that actually go down in the fenders. Those are from Keith Marks. Whoa! And I also put one right here on the hood. It's hard to see it, but I put one right there on the hood. And then it didn't really do much else as far as custom touches go on the car itself. The underside is pretty much stock right from the kit. Even the wheels and tires, I swapped them. I put the big brakes on it and then the custom wheels. These wheels are actually from the California Wheels version of the 67 Chevelle from Revell. And I had gotten a few of those kits, build one stock, one as a donor for another resin project. So I had a couple sets of these wheels and pretty much drop right on the chassis. I don't even think I did anything to lower the front. But I mean, they pretty much bolted right on there, slopped right on there, and I didn't have to do anything. But just some nice polishing and some bare metal foil work and detailing it out. And generally just having some fun with it. And the gas cap is changed out. That's not the one that comes in the kit. I actually believe that comes in the MPC 71 Boss 302 as a custom part. I think that's where I got that from. I'm not 100% sure. And then I put the wing on there. I was kind of back and forth on whether or not to put that wing on there. But I put it on there, and I think that wing looks really good, even though it's kind of redundant having the rear spoiler and the spoiler on the car. I find that kind of redundant, but I still think it's just cool. You know, you got a spoiler on top of a spoiler. But it's from the Department of Redundancy Department. But anyway, I think it's really cool, and I put one on if I had a Mustang, but it's just kind of, two spoilers on the back and one on the front. But it's just a really cool build that I've really enjoyed. It's gotten some comments and won a couple of awards on a show or two that I've taken it to. But it's held up really nice, and the paint's holding up really nice, and it looks really, really cool. I wish I had a light in the other direction so you can see the dark purple when the light hits it, because these lights hit it and you can see the greens and then the peach and that stuff. But at certain angles you can get the purple look to it, but you get the light at the right angle and it really, really stands out. So you can see the green right there. But it was just an experiment for me on the paint and going custom on it. But I enjoyed building it, had a good time with it, and I hope you like it and give me your comments and your thoughts on it. But I figure that's enough on this one. But I figured you guys enjoy my customs. I don't do a whole lot of them, but I figured I'd show you this one and to get your comments and your thoughts, and hope you guys really enjoy it. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next Saturday. And you guys, you have a wonderful weekend.